appropriate that a series of Appalachian studies should debut with a conversation with Aunt Jennie Wilson. Jennie pulls her stories and songs from a life interwoven with the traditions of the people in the mountains of Appalachia. I think that Billy Ed Wheeler puts it best when in the liner notes from Jennie's first album, A Portrait of Aunt Jennie Wilson, he writes, "Jennie is more than a folk singer. She is more than a storyteller, as you know if you are one of the thousands who have heard her in person. She is the real thing, the living source. She is a folk song. The fabric of her life is the stuff folk tradition is made from." Jennie's grandson, Roger Bryant, a singer and performing artist in his own right, acts as an interviewer moderator in Patchwork, Volume 1, A Conversation with Aunt Jennie Wilson.
Welcome to the first segment of what we hope may be a continuing program of Appalachian studies into Appalachian heritage. Today we'd like to emphasize the music of Appalachia, and we'd like to talk a little bit about the people of Appalachia and how the lives of the people have affected the music and how the music has affected the lives of Appalachians. We have with us today a very, very well-known, nationally respected traditional folk artist. She's from Logan County in West Virginia, and she has material on file in Smithsonian Institute, Library of Congress, and a lot of other places. She's nationally known for her unique style of picking the five-string banjo, which we'll talk a lot about later on in the program, and for her repertoire of folklore. I'd now like to introduce to you Aunt Jennie Wilson. How long have you lived in Appalachia?
All of 77 years.
And out of that 77 years, how long have you played the banjo?
Since I was about 9 years old.
9 years old. So that's somebody that's better at math than I am. That would be how many years? Anyway, as I said, we are going to talk about the traditional style of playing the folks' five-string banjo and how it differs from some of the more modern styles. So why don't you kind of tell them a little bit about that?
Well, I'll tell you, now when I learned to play the banjo, that was the only way to play, the way that I play now. Which along up through the years, then they started more modern, you know, the bluegrass, which I never did try to learn to play. But how I come to learn to play the banjo, there was 11 of us children in the family, and we all played music. That was all the music we had, was what we made ourselves, you know. And so I favored the organ and the banjo the most, and I learned to play from my brothers. And I started in trying to learn when I was about 9 years old. And then when I was 14, I was playing right along with my brothers and going to the square dances and big barn dances, and I'd have to set upon something, you know, for my music to blend with theirs, with their fiddle and guitar. I was so little that I'd have to set upon something, you know. And then, well, I learned to dance, too. That all goes with it. And so then I would play the banjo half the night, dance the other half. I told them at a college I was at one time that I had played the banjo half the night, banked the other half and hoed corn the next day. And I said that was living. But that was nothing strange back in my days when I was growing up. People really got something out of life, I think. I don't think they do anymore. Some boy, that's like Roger here, he'll start out on Saturday night. He's going to hit the high spot, you know, maybe get so, if he don't get killed, before he has it. But we didn't have that to look to. All we had to look to was just to gang up somewhere and play music and sing and dance and tell big stories and have good times.
You know, whenever people think about playing the banjo, probably automatically comes to mind is probably Earl Scruggs and some of the bluegrass pickers, and they're probably more familiar with the bluegrass style of picking the 5-string banjo, which have picks on your fingers, and it's kind of a rolling style, a very, very exciting style of playing the banjo. But we'd kind of like to talk about the style that Aunt Jennie plays, which is the traditional or old-time banjo that they call. And I'm going to refer to this instrument as banjo, because in the mountains, the banjo was referred to as banjo, and I was always a little embarrassed about that until I went to college, and I was a history major, and I ran across a letter that Thomas Jefferson had written to, I believe, John Adams. I'm not sure on that, but in that letter, he referred to the slaves on his plantation as playing the banjo. And he spelled it B-A-N-J-E-R. So if it's good enough for Thomas Jefferson, it's good enough for me, so I'm going to call it the banjo. So let's kind of talk about your style of playing the banjo.
Well, Roger, now they call it like, what all different kinds do they call it?
Well, I don't know.
But, they will call it clawhammer style.
Yeah.
And then they call it...
overhand.
Yes. And, but we always called it folk style. Play it.
And also, another technical point I want to make is that you kind of note it a little different than what most of the banjo players. You call that double noting, don't you?
Yes.
Let's kind of play them one and give them a.
Wait,
an
now,
example.
Roger, to show you the difference, in double note, now, up here, which you don't think about the hand down here, then your thumb goes over and hits the other string, but you don't think about that.
Well, let's kind of give them a demonstration.
All right. And you see there that my thumb went from there over here. But the first banjo that was made, so I've been taught, Roger, was a 4-string banjo. And then somebody had mind enough, I reckon, to come up with the 5th string here. And that is a difference. The 4-string is a tenor banjo, and the 5-string is what I call Appalachian. And we didn't have these until 1894.
You're talking about
The
steel
strings.
strings, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let's kind of talk about your banjo a little bit. If you notice that there's no resonator on the back of the banjo, it's just a folk style banjo, and a lot of bluegrass models have what they call a resonator, which is kind of a shell that goes on the back, which gives it much more volume and gives the instrument a lot more drive. This was the way that the first banjos, or the old-timey banjos, were built, and I'll let you take it from there. You tell them about your...
Well, now this banjo in particular, this cap is Hudson seal. It isn't plastic, like the other banjos are. And then the neck here, that is curly maple wood. And the fretboard is black walnut, and then the tailpiece is sterling silver, and those inlays is mother of pearl, and the keys are ivory. And a man made this banjo in Winchester, Kentucky, Homer C. Ledford. And so a friend of mine, he had him to make a banjo for him. And then he never could learn to play, so I went down to the college for him down in North Carolina, spent a few days, and he gave me the banjo. And I think it's one of the best. It's strictly handmade.
It certainly is a fine-looking banjo. You were talking a little bit ago about going to square dances and playing music half the night and then dancing the other half. Why don't you tell them about a square dance you went to down what's now Chief Logan Park?
Now that dance wasn't there, I lived there.
You lived there.
I was born and raised there. Roger, I put that on record, and I'm sure all of them's heard about it.
Well, I think they'd like to hear about it. Would y'all like to hear about Aunt Jenny's first square dance that she played for?
Anyway, I wasn't supposed to go to this dance. And so the boy that I was dating, I was about 17, and he was caller for a square dance. And so he came to my house and he said, Jenny, are you going to the dance? And told where it was, which down here, if you've ever been at Chief Logan Park, which I know you have, it's across the Hilton there, over on Hart Street. Well, it was wild and woolly back there. So, I said, if I can sleep off and go, I'll go. And so I goes and tells my mother that I was going to spend the night with a girlfriend. Well, that's all right, sir. So this boyfriend of mine, he had a car. Oh, it's a Model T. Lord, I thought it's like a Cadillac. So when the other girls around, you see, there's dating a boy that had a car. And so he came after me. And we went to the dance. As soon as I got in to where the dance was, it was upstairs in an old lodge hall. Oh, they was a gang there, but oh, they was just fixed up to have a good time. And I was too. So here, when I went in, the two boys that were playing the fiddle and the guitar, they was sitting over in the corner like that over there. And a window on each side. So, oh, Jenny, come on, you're going to play for him to dance one set, aren't you? I said, I'll play for him to dance one set, but no more. I said, I'm going to dance. Well, so we started it. Oh, they done fine, you know. There was about 8 couples dancing at once, you know, off in 2 different bunches, big place. So then when come time for them to change partners, and then I think to myself, now somebody's going to come here and take this banjo and play the banjo. And so here they was choosing partners, and in come a girl. She looked at one of the boys and she said, why didn't you bring Zell over? Said, I'd love to whip her tonight. I know she's talking out of turn. And he said, you didn't whip her the other night. She said, oh, yes, I did. And that got into it, and he just drove back his hand, took her inside the head. Boy, she hit the floor, and I imagined I heard her dress tail pop. So when she hit that floor, and from that they began taking sides, each one, you know. I just sat there, looking, wondering what was going to happen. And them 2 boys, my other 2 musicians, they went out of them windows, one on each side, like big flying squirrels. They didn't look like it. And there I sat. Well, it's all between me and the door. Couldn't get out. And I was just sitting there at the banjo like this, looking over. All at once, something went right through that banjo calf and hit right like a 38. I said, God, I'm shot. I know it was. I just knew it was. And I thought it was shot square through. So I looked down, rubbed my side, and looked for the blood. Couldn't see nothing. Finally, I slewed the banjo down with this. And I sat there wondering how I was going to get through the door. I seen knives a flashing and people a fighting. Didn't know what in the world to do. But I thought, well, I've got to get out of here. If I ain't killed, I will be. So here I thought then about running off. And I wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. And my boyfriend that had brought me there, he had done set sail. He had took out there. And finally I got up and started walking through, you know. Go a little piece and rub my side, see if I could see the blood, you know. Then I pinched myself and knowed it was shot. So here went on out, and when I went downstairs and hit the ground, so help me, somebody shot a horse out in the yard. They did, that's true. I took out of there. I knowed I was going somewhere, but I didn't know where. And it's about 9 in the night. But I knew the people lived the first house below there. And here's that boy. He had gotten that Model T cowardly, you know, and locked himself up in there, you know. And as I passed by him, he said, hey, Jennie, are you shot? You shut up, you know I am. So I was so mad at him, you know, and here I went up. But when I got to this place, I spent the night, you know. Here was the girl sitting crying, my girlfriend, because her mother wouldn't let her go to dance. She said there'd be somebody killed up there tonight, and I'm not going to let you go. And when I walked in, this girl, oh, here's Jennie. I said, yeah, and she said, I wanted to go to the dance. Asked Mother, maybe she'll let me go. I said, no, you don't want to go. I said, it's just such a drag up there. I said, nobody's having no fun. And I was afraid the woman would hear me, because I know that I'd tell the girl all of it after we went to bed that night. And so I spent the night there. And the next morning, then this girl and her brother, they took me home. But regardless of the Model T Ford, I had no more dates for that boy. He should have stood his ground at least.
We'll, I'll give you a little bit of a break here, and we'll kind of talk about folk music in general, and Appalachian folk music in particular. And I'll kind of relate some of the things that I've learned from Aunt Jennie Wilson and about the music of Appalachia. I think probably the most interesting thing about Appalachian music, at least in my opinion, is that it's good, honest music. It's songs about people, about the lives of people, things that have affected the lives of people, and it's not something that's been fabricated, and it's just woven into the whole fabric of the people of Appalachia. A good example that I could give you would be a song called The Tramp. And it's a typical folk song for a lot of reasons. One being that there's a lot of different versions of the song. The fact that it was passed by word of mouth counts probably for that. And that you're not talking about an age where we had TV and radio and phonograph records where music or songs were pretty well documented. The only way to learn a song was to hear someone who played that song. You sit down and listen to it, and you'd learn it from that person. Well, you can see how things could be changed or sort of scrambled around a little bit, in that maybe you'd hear a song here and move somewhere else, and you couldn't remember all the words, but you could only remember half of them, and you could remember the melody. So you'd simply substitute the words that you didn't know. Now, this song called The Tramp, some people call Can I Sleep in Your Barn Tonight, Mister, is a very good example of that. Will you help me do that one?
Sure.
Okay. While we're playing it, see if you can recognize the words from the modern song. the church yard. They showed me a newly made mound, and they told me that burial that I sleeping beneath the cold chilly ground. As sure as there's God up in heaven, as I've always been taught to believe, well, I hope that he'll give me that scoundrel the food that he ought to receive. Let me tell you, I use no tobacco, neither carry no matches to light. I will do you no harm, kind mister, and I sleep in your arm tonight. Thank you. Anybody recognize that melody from maybe a more modern song? About a song called Red River Valley. Did you ever hear that? Well, now that's
No, I'm sure they never did.
haven't heard the Red River Valley. Well, anyway, the point that I was trying to make is that as the population moved from the East Coast to the West Coast, someone came through Appalachia and heard that song, got out around the Red River section somewhere and could not remember the words, but the melody kept turning over and over in their head, so they simply sat down and wrote the words to Red River Valley. Also, about 2 years ago, a country artist down in Nashville wrote a song called Can I Sleep in Your Arms Tonight, Mister? And it has the same melody as that song and pretty much the same structure. So you can see how these melodies and even the songs keep popping up generation after generation. And one other interesting point that I'll make about that song is that there was not a word of truth in it. This fellow was a kind of a vagabond or a bum, and he traveled around playing on people's sympathy for maybe a night's lodging or a meal or whatever, which was very, very common in those days. You mentioned earlier that your home was down in what is now Chief Logan State Park. Your dad had a farm down there, did he?
Yes, the whole hall. He leased that whole thing. He didn't live there very long, about 40 years.
About 40 years. Yeah,
And now you see why I'm so wild, because I was raised and I had that home.
You're from a pretty large family, aren't you?
11 children,
Boys and girls?
6 boys and 5 girls. And I was the youngest one. And my brothers, I left to follow them. They were all grown, you know, and I would let follow them get out and go places. And sometimes I would give out and they'd have to pack me back to the house. And finally one of my brothers told me, he said, now, Jenny, if you learn to play the banjo and ride the horses and shoot a gun, he said, you'll be a boy and you can go anywhere we go. Boy, I put in good time. I hated housework beyond anything, you know. But I loved to follow them, you know. And one of my brothers especially, he would hold a gun, fix up a target, and he'd hold a gun for me to pull the trigger, you know. And I imagine I done it, you know. And so it wasn't long until, boy, I could just get after that gun and shoot as same as they could. And I'm awful glad I did, because I've lived in places in my married life that, Lord, I felt safer with a gun. In coal camps, you know, all over the state of West Virginia. I was kind of glad I learned to shoot a gun.
When you were a child living down there, did a trip to town, was that a trip to Logan or to Chapmanville?
No, that was the biggest treat we got, Roger, was to come to Logan.
To Logan?
Yeah.
And how often did that happen?
Oh, about once a month,
Once a
or
month.
sometimes every 2 months.
Then I guess your family grew most of the things, or made most of the things that they needed?
Yeah.
How long a trip was it from down there to Logan at that time?
3 miles.
It's 3 miles on a
Yeah.
horse. So that's
But
not that
Roger,
far.
people had horses then like they've got cars now. You rode horseback and went places. If you didn't want to walk, and I've walked him many times, from where we lived to Logan and back home.
Aunt Jenny, a lot of places have been labeled as being a typical Appalachian for a lot of reasons, and a lot of people are very, very intrigued by that because her lifestyle has sort of patterned or is correlated by the evolution of Appalachia. She went from the farm on into the coal fields, did you not?
That's
After
right.
you left, you married a coal miner and went to where?
Right on into the coal fields and been there ever since.
Been there ever since. Your husband was a coal miner, you say?
Yeah, he was killed at Peach Creek in Mines in 39.
So you've been a widow for a while.
Yeah.
Right? How come you never married again?
Well, two reasons, Roger. One was there wasn't another man in the world but had me, and I wouldn't have had another man in the world. That's two reasons.
That's two pretty good reasons
Yeah.
for not marrying again.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about, I know you've related a lot of stories to me that were things that happened whenever you were living in the coal fields, at first one place and then another, about things that have happened. Well, I'm sure these people might like to hear
Well, I don't remember,
some of
Roger.
those. How about the one that you were telling me when you lived down at, no, on second thought, maybe you better not tell that one. Remember the house that you lived in that was supposed to have been haunted?
Oh,
And you
yes,
and,
sir. It was, too. You know, I believe stuff like that. I was taught that when I was little, you know, that, now, Jenny, don't get out in the hills by yourself. You might see a ghost or something like that. Well, our children, you know, that was just around in then. And that they was afraid of ghosts and things. And Roger's traveled around with me since he's that high. And he'll tell you that I'm still afraid of things like that. Yeah, imagine something going to happen, you know. And so, after I was married, well, it was hard to get a house. And finally, my husband rented this house. Here's in the coal field. Wasn't hardly anyone live in it because they claimed that a woman killed her husband there, cut his head off with an axe and kicked it out in the snow. Well, so, and the man's name, they said, was Adam Taylor. Well, I imagine that my husband doubled back and worked of a night. Lord, I know I'll see Adam out there. So one night, scared to death. And here I had all the doors locked and barred, you know, walking through the house with a pistol in my hand. It was about 11 o'clock in the night. And I peeping out the window looking, you know, for the bus to come in that my husband would be in on. And they rode the bus, you know, to work back and forth up the mines. And I seen something right out to the side of the creek. Looked like a man with a dark suit on. And I couldn't see no head. I thought I was And so here I got back and I looked again. Then I pulled the window curtain down. Oh, that's nothing. Talking to myself, you know. Well, I'd look at the gun, then I'd look at that. And then I thought to myself, I seen it move. Now I believe I just got in there. And luckily I didn't, for it was my father-in-law's horse. His saddle horse. And here he was, you know, he had a white face here. And just he raised his head like that. But he was going to cut it off. Yeah, I shot him, thought it was Adam. And I would hear things. Now Roger's going to dispute this. He said this is a belief without a foundation, you know, spooks and ghosts and things. But I had been sitting there of a night, you know, maybe sewing or something, and I'd hear something start right up upstairs, just like lumber hitting together, just like you carry lumber, and the ends of it hit together. And then also, I heard something that just went, like a baby a crying. Let's go admit to that too. And so my husband was home that time. Now listen, Jim, now you've got to get me waiting here. Don't you hear that? He said, yeah, I hear it. I said, now you come on, I'll show you what that is. I said, I'm not going out there. But my neighbor's dog had a bunch of little pups out in the corner, of the yard. There was a little shed there, and that was them little pups making noise. And I thought it was a baby crying.
Now
I still believe in things like that. Can't help it, say more.
there's a lot of study now. A lot of people are interested in ESP and zodiac signs and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's nothing new to Aunt Jenny here, because she's always believed in things like that. Matter of fact, the only two things you'll ever scare her with is storms and ghosts. It's the only two things she's scared of. Speaking of signs, you can cite some examples of some signs that you've seen, like before things had happened, you'd get a sign
Yeah.
on it.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm just taking your old time up for nothing because you don't believe that stuff. When I do, and nobody else believes it, hardly now, but Lord, I do. I'll tell you, I lived up where the flood was, in the head of Big Buffalo up there. My husband was mine foreman up there, and I was right up in that harbor where the flood was. That is way back, that was in 27. And I had a fine house to live in. Had a big furnace under there, that you put coal in, like they do in the schoolhouses now. And so I had a girl staying with me, and I said to her, I heard something one night, but they would be men come around and clean the furnace all out and clean the ashes out and everything when spring came. And my husband was working that night, and that mine was awful dangerous, they said. And so we were sitting there talking, this girl that stayed with me, and we were sitting there talking. And so I heard something, just like you would take a big sledgehammer and hit a piece of tin. And I looked at her and I said, did you fasten that basement door? And she said, yes, I did. I said, Lord, I know there's somebody from up in Little Birmingham down there in that basement. There was people up there, and if another came above me, Lord, they'd do anything. And I thought of some of them. And she said, no, Jenny, I've got the door fixed with a piece of a 2x4. Well, I go. Here we went, me and her. She said, you get in front of me with that gun. So I did, and she was back behind. And we could turn the light on from out of the kitchen that it would shine down in the basement. And we got down in there. There wasn't a thing. There wasn't one thing to be seen down there. And I even opened the door of the furnace and looked. Wasn't nothing. It went on, and the next morning, now I'm telling you every word, the truth, and of course, that wasn't what made it, but in my imagination it was. We were sitting eating breakfast after my husband, he come in about 3 o'clock in the morning. And we were sitting there eating breakfast, and someone knocked on the door. And my husband went to the door, and this boy said, is your wife's name Virginia? And Jim said, yes. He said, I have a telegram here for her. And it was from my sister down at Hen Lawson. Her husband had got killed the night before. But this, when I looked at my watch, when I went down in there, it was 20 minutes till 11. And he was killed at 20 minutes till 11 o'clock at night. And there was, what he was doing was leveling up a coal car and a loading boom there. The rope broke and it fell on him and killed him. And I just thought to myself, I said to my husband, I said, I know there was something going to happen, and told him what I heard. He said, Jenny, there's the house is settling down. He didn't believe nothing like that, you know. And I said, right when I heard that, I know that is that loading boom that fell on George Gulf. But I always believed it. And I was in the head of his buffalo, and they lived down here at in-laws. But now, just things like that I can't keep from doing. And when we were going to Texas, kept coming over that radio about the big storm, you know. Where was it, Rogers? Lord, it's just slaying. Rogers said, Mommy looked in clouds racing. I said, I'm not looking. I said, I'm scared to death. He said, well, it's no use to be scared. He said, where that storm is 500 miles, must. I said, yeah, but he could come here. And so I would look like clouds coming up out of the ground, you know, being used to these hills. Then Roger turned that radio on and sing a while, you know. Whatever was on the radio, that's what Roger was singing. Me going along, looking along, you know. And boy, when we hit that, this is the funniest thing. We was going through Memphis. I said, hey, Roger, we might get on Elvis Boulevard somewhere here. And I said, I'll make some pictures, take them back home and give them to them girls. He said, I'm not interested in Elvis's Boulevard. Here's the car just going, Lord, 12 lanes. Buddy, they was behind us. On each side of it's over us number. Well, there he went out. Me talking just hard as I could, you know. And went on till we got into Dallas, you know. So there we struck it again. Same way, you know, cars all around us, over us and under us and everything. I reached over and shook Roger. I said, hey, Roger, I said, the president got killed right along here somewhere, did he? Said, I don't give a damn. He said, he said, I'm just as much interested in where the president got killed as was where Elvis Presley's Boulevard was. All I'm going to do is get out of this mess here, he said. Lord, traffic was killing it. But all we had the best time it ever was.
Getting back to the music, vocal music was the first music that we know anything about. So I thought maybe it might be fun if we all sang a song together. And as I told you, you know, folk music, Appalachian folk music in particular, people made songs up about their everyday life, things that affected their life. And groundhog hunting was a big thing because the groundhog was very.
I never did hear that, Roger.
Well, I'm going to teach it to them. Was a very, very versatile animal. You used the hide and you ate the meat and you used the fat for grease or for various other things. And so we're going to sing a song about the groundhog. Now this is a real easy song to learn. The way we'll do it is I'll sing the first line, then you'll repeat the first line, and that makes the second line. Then I'll sing the third line, and then we'll all sing the fourth line. We'll all sing groundhog, and that makes fourth line. Sounds simple enough, right? I'll give you an example of what I mean. I'll sing, shoulder up my axe and whistle up my dog. Then you'll sing, shoulder up my axe and whistle up my dog. Then I'll sing, going up the holler to catch a groundhog. And then we'll all sing, groundhog. Y'all look like a fairly intelligent group. I think we can handle that. Let's try it. Are you ready? You ready? Shoulder up my axe and whistle up my dog. Let's try that again. Shoulder up my axe and whistle up my dog. Shoulder up my axe and whistle up my dog. Going up the holler to catch a groundhog, groundhog. One in the rocks and two in the log. I heard one whistle and I knowed it was a hog, groundhog. Run here, Tom, with a 10-foot pole. Run here, Tom, with a 10-foot pole. Twist that groundhog out of his hole, groundhog. best shoestrings you ever tried. Groundhog, yonder comes Bill with a snicker and a grin. Groundhog grease all over his chin. Groundhog, old Aunt Sal's hopping on her cane. Swore she'd have that whistle pig spring. Groundhog, but old Aunt Sal's skipping through the hall. She had enough whistle pig to grease them all. Groundhog, meat's in the cupboard and the hide's in the churn. If that ain't groundhog, I'll be darned. Groundhog. Give yourself a big hand. That was real fun. I don't think the Mormon Tabernacle Choir is any great grant, but you didn't do too bad. I tell you, I brought along some instruments that have been around in Appalachia for a number of years. I thought maybe you might enjoy seeing them, hearing a little bit about them, and maybe I'll play you a tune or two. This instrument is called a lap dulcimer, a mountain dulcimer, an Appalachian dulcimer, a pluck dulcimer, a hog harp, and probably 30 other names depending on the part of the country that you're in. As I said, it's an Appalachian dulcimer, not to be confused with the dulcimer. The dulcimer was the forerunner of the piano, and it looks like a dresser drawer turned upside down with strings running across it, and you play it with two little hammers or two little wooden mallets of some kind. It's a much, much older instrument than this. Matter of fact, it goes back to the 2nd chapter of Daniel in the Bible. It talks about the dulcimer. And as I said, it was the forerunner of the piano. If any of you have looked inside a piano, you see when you strike a key, a little hammer goes out there and hits a string. Well, this was a very simplified version of that, in which they eliminated the keyboard and just held the hammers in their hands and struck the keys, although they're in rows of 4s, and tuned so that you can get a much fuller sound out of them. This, as I said, is a kind of dulcimer. It's probably a lot more popular now than it ever has been. Up until a few years ago, the only way you could get one of these was to find someone who made them. Now you can buy a kit that you can make your own dulcimer, just like you make model airplanes or whatever. This one was made by Gene Dickinson up in Fairmont, West Virginia, and it's made out of wormy chestnut. You don't see very many instruments made out of wormy chestnut for a lot of reasons. Number one, they don't really make a good instrument. The wood's very, very kind of brittle, and it cracks very easily. And it doesn't really have the tone qualities that you get from like a spruce top or some of the more resonant woods. However, this one I think is probably closer to what the old-timey dulcimers would have looked like, and probably sounds closer to what the old-timey dulcimers would have sounded like. And to be honest, I thought it was pretty, so I bought the dulcimer. There's a lot of debate as to how the instrument came into Appalachia, and that may be a good project for some of you people, because to be quite honest, I don't know. I've listened to several different theories about how it came into Appalachia. I won't go into all of them. I will kind of briefly mention a couple of them. One of them is that it came in from the British Isles and was a variation of the Elizabethan rebec, which could very, very be likely. Another one is that it also had its origins from the people of the British Isles, but that it's native to Appalachia. The theory being that, I'm talking particularly about the Scotch-Irish now, that there's a lot of similarities between this instrument and the bagpipes. The theory being that when they came into Appalachia, they did not have the materials that they needed to make bagpipes, but they did have an abundance of wood, and they had animals from which they could make strings. So it seemed entirely likely that them being ingenious people would make an instrument out of wood and strings that has the same tone qualities as the bagpipes. I'll show you what I mean. If you're familiar with the pipes, which I don't play the bagpipes incidentally, and I'm merely repeating things that have been told to me. If you're familiar with the pipes, they have a drone pipe which remains constant throughout the melody. It's that and you hear that in the background all through. Well, the dulcimer has the same thing. It has a drone string, which remains constant throughout the melody. The melody itself is played down on the fine string, just as the melody is played on the chanter on the bagpipes. The middle string is a harmony string, just as the middle pipe on the bagpipes is a harmony pipe. So there's a lot of similarities, and it seems likely that they may have made an instrument that they could play the same songs on that they played on the bagpipes in Scotland and Ireland. Also, there's probably 15, 20 other theories. One interesting thing that you're going to find out if you study the origin of any kind of musical instruments or music in general, especially the instruments, you're going to find that almost at the same time at various parts of the world, there were similar instruments that were being invented, like, you know, at the same time. I'll play you a couple of songs on the Appalachian dulcimer. Will a circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. Give me that old-time religion, give me that old-time religion, give me that old-time religion, it's good enough for me. Waterbound and I can't get home, waterbound and I can't get home, waterbound and I can't get home, howdy-o come Terry-o. The instrument was originally played with goose quills. I couldn't find any geese on my way up here today, so that's just a little piece of plastic. It's noted, one way of playing it is to note it with a little stick, just a very simple little stick in which you note the strings. Other people do play some variations of some chords by noting the strings with their fingers, and now there are some 4 and even 5 string dulcimers. The early ones only had 3 on them, but now there's some 4 strings and some 5 string mountain dulcimers. Anybody got any questions? Good, because I just told you everything I know. This instrument is not nearly as old as the Appalachian dulcimer. As a matter of fact, it only goes back to around the turn of the century with the mail order business. Sears and Roebuck, those companies, and a whole lot of similar instruments to this sort of sprang up. They had a maxophone and I don't know what all, but they were just really mechanical kind of instruments, as this is. This is a auto harp. Just as the name implies, it's an automatic harp. The automatic part is that they've got the chords laid out for you to where all you have to do is press the chord and press this button, and that gives you the chord that you want. It's not a very hard instrument to play. If any of you are interested in maybe taking on an instrument, this one's pretty simple. Most people, most ballad singers, lay them in their lap this way and just accompany themselves with the chords. I play it what's known as the Appalachian style, which was popularized by Maybelle Carter of the original Carter family. And I'll show you a little bit about it. This is not 38, but it's old 97. You must put her in the center on time. It's a mighty rough road from Lynchburg to Danville in a line on a 3-mile grade. It was on that grade that he lost their brakes. See what a jump he made. He turned around and said to his black greasy foreman, just shovel on a little more coal. And when we crossed that White Oak Mountain, you can watch old 97 roll. Telegram came from Washington Station, and this is how it read. Said that brave engineer that run old 97 is laying in old Danville dead. He was going down that grade making 90 miles an hour when the whistle broke into a scream. He was found in the wreck with his hand on the throttle and was scalded to death by the steam. Now, ladies, you'd better take a warning this time on and learn. Never speak harsh words to your true love and husband. He may leave you and never return. No, I'll just kind of take a bath now. Anyway, let's get back to Aunt Jennie Wilson now. I want to talk a little bit more about Aunt Jennie's life. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what life was like back in the early days when you were a child growing up, and then we'll kind of sort of move up into some more modern.
Well, Roger, it was just, of course, we didn't have all the recreation that the children has now, but schools was about the same, only here would be a one-room school, and they would teach from the primer to the 8th grade, one teacher. And then the room wouldn't be full. There wasn't that many kids around there. But we would have on Fridays. On Friday, there was never many classes. We'd have spelling matches, and we'd have taffy pullings and things like that. Yeah, a lot of fun when we went to school. And you'd see boys as big as you are in the 6th grade. That's right.
Dumb boys.
Yeah.
3 minutes. We want to kind of finish things out now and do you a song about a coal miner down in Welch, West Virginia that tried his luck at gambling and ended up getting hung. It's a song called Young Hardy.
I don't know, really not.
This is a Chinese folk song called Tu Ning. hard and a heavy load. And the folks I'm meeting ain't always kind. Some are bad, some are good, some have done the best they could, and some have tried to eat my troubled head. And I can't help but wonder where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Can't help but wonder where I'm bound. Had a little girl one time, she had lips like cherry wine, and she loved me till my head went insane. But I was too blind to see she was slipping around on me, and one night she left on midnight train. And I can't help but wonder where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Can't help but wonder where I'm bound. Had a buddy way back home, but he started out to roam, and here he's out by Frisco Bay. And sometimes when I've had a few, his old voice comes ringing through, and I'm going out to see him some more day. And I can't help but wonder where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Can't help but wonder where I'm bound. If you see me passing by, and you sit and you wonder why, and you wish that you were around with too, nail your shoes to the kitchen floor, lace them up, then bar the door. Thank God for the roof that's over you. And I can't help but wonder where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Can't help but wonder where I'm bound. Thank you. My microphone fell off here, so we'll have to get that back on. What I just sang for you is a good example of a typical folk song, and that's what we're here today to talk about, is about folk music in general and its impact on Appalachia in particular. The reason I say that that's a good example of a folk song is because it's a song that evidently someone wrote about their life. And that's basically all that we're talking about when we talk about folk music, irregardless of what section of the country that you're in. All we're talking about are songs that affect people's lives. And music's played a very important part in the lives of people throughout history. In order to really understand American folk music, you have to go back and have some general understanding of geography and history to really understand the origins of the music and what the real impact was. As you know, that the migration or settlement in this country started in the east, on the eastern coast more or less, and moved towards the west. And as those early pioneers and settlers moved westward, they took along with them the music of the times, plus they wrote songs about their travels. I Can't Help But Wonder Where I'm Bound is a song along that nature, although it's a much more modern piece. If we're going to talk about folk music, I think you have to divide it into two categories. The first one being traditional folk songs, which we refer to songs that are 100 years old or older, and contemporary folk music, those of which are not that old. The song that I just did for you is a contemporary folk song. We're very, very fortunate to live in Appalachia because we retained our heritage much longer than other sections of the country did. The reason for that, if you look at the map, the routes which people moved westward on went around Appalachia because of the rugged mountains and the rough terrain. It was very, very difficult for them to travel westward, so they either went south of Appalachia or they went north through the Cumberland area and around West Virginia and back out west. Well, as they did that, America's been called a melting pot as they moved in those areas, because they were easily traveled, you not only had one culture, but you had a lot of different cultures that intermingled, okay? In Appalachia, we didn't really have that until later years, because the people who moved into Appalachia were primarily Scotch-Irish ancestry, and because it was rugged terrain, it pretty much remained Scotch-Irish, with a little bit of British Isles, English influence, so on and so forth. But it pretty much remained its true culture. You can still see that evident today in a lot of customs of the old-timers. Some of the dialect, you can better see that that they did retain the Scotch-Irish heritage. Of course, you know, we're starting to lose our heritage too. As we get modern roads into West Virginia, that's the price you pay. You do get different groups, different cultures, and it becomes a melting pot and becomes much more difficult to actually separate what is Arabic culture, what is Oriental culture, and what is true Scotch-Irish ancestry or Elizabethan dialect. You know, all of those kind of things are much more harder to pick out now. The music typifies that. There's great arguments among folk musicians trying to find a true American folk song. Well, from what little bit that I've studied about it and what I know, there is no such animal. Because you can trace almost any song that you want to trace. If it's considered a American folk song, you can trace its roots back to some European section. Such as this song is a good example of that. I love ballads, and I'm primarily a ballad singer. This song is called Rose Conley, and folk singers in Kentucky claim that it originated in Kentucky. Folk singers in West Virginia claim that it originated in West Virginia. Folk singers in Tennessee claim that it originated in Tennessee. When the truth of the matter is, it did not originate in any of those places. It originated in Ireland, and the part of the song that actually gives it away is where he stabs her with his daggard, which is spelled D-A-G-G-A-R-D. Well, in America, they never spelled daggard. It was just dagger, D-A-G-G-E-R. So for that reason, I feel that it's one of those songs that was brought over. Now, they probably did it in a little different dialect, of which I'm sorry that I can't do for you, but this is the American version of the song. Down in the willow garden where me and my true love did meet, and there we were a-courting, my love dropped off to sleep. I had a bottle of burgundy wine which my true love did not know, and there I murdered that dear little girl down on the banks below. Stabbed her with my dagger, which was a bloody knife, and threw her in the river, which was a dreadful sight. My father often told me that money would set me free if I would murder that dear little girl whose name was Rose Conley. Now he sits in his cabin door, wiping a weeping eye, and looks out on his own dear son upon the scaffold high. My race is run beneath the sun, lo, hell is now waiting for me, for I have murdered that dear little girl whose name was Rose Conley. To really see the influence, let me get the pluck dulcimer back here for just a minute. This is a pluck dulcimer, or a mountain dulcimer. It's hard to trace its origins too, because just about the time you think you've got it nailed down as to where the instrument originated, you take a look at some other culture, and it may even be some Asian culture, and you'll see a similar instrument almost about the same time period. Now, there's no way that those people could have had any kind of mass communications to have seen the instrument, but for some strange reason, about the same time in history, you can see a similar instrument. If there is an instrument that may be native to Appalachia, it could very well be this one. Okay? And I'll show you why in a minute. Now, this one just so happens it's made out of wormy chestnut. Wormy chestnut does not make a good dulcimer as far as tone qualities go. Some of the spruce tops, mahogany backs, those things make a much better instrument. But I like this one because I think it's probably closer to what the old dulcimers would have sounded like. The instrument does not have much volume, but you have to bear in mind that you're talking about playing it in a one-room cabin setting primarily, where it was very close-knit people, and you did not need a whole lot of volume on the instrument. Even though it very well may be a genuine American instrument, you can trace its roots back to Scotland and Ireland. Its melody, or the melody quality of the instrument, is very much like a bagpipe. Obviously, whenever the settlers came into Appalachia, they probably did not have all of the things that they needed to make bagpipes, but they did have wood, and they had animals from which they could make gut strings. So it just seems likely to me that they probably made the instrument to kind of copy the tone qualities that they had on the bagpipes in Scotland and Ireland. You got two melody strings, which are the fine strings, which are tuned in unison just as the two pipes on the bagpipes are tuned in unison. You got a drone string which remains constant throughout the song, just as the bagpipes have a drone pipe that you hear all through the song. It's that and you hear it all through the song, and then the melody's played down on the fine strings. Down on the fine strings. And it sounds very much like the melody of the bagpipes. I'll show you what I mean. Waterbound and I can't get home, waterbound and I can't get home, waterbound and I can't get home, howdy-o come Terry-o. Then they adapted the instrument to some American songs, primarily hymns. I was standing by my window on one cold and cloudy day when I saw that hearse come rolling for to carry my mother away. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. So, if you don't get anything else out of what we do here today, I would like for you to leave here knowing that if you really want to trace the origins back on almost any kind of song, you're going to have to look farther than just looking at the United States, because you'll find the influence and probably the song somewhere in the European section. The only culture that I really can't find too much of an impact as far as music goes is the Asian cultures, and there was a large segment of Chinese people, that came into the West, the Southwest, primarily to work on the railroad. And I think it's because of the nature of the people that they sort of stayed to themselves. And you don't see too much influence in regard to their music having much impact on American music. The Scotch-Irish, definitely. Most of the Central European nations had great impact. And you can trace it right on down to songs that we have today. The blues, for example, was kind of a commingling of the original British Isles music coupled with the Negro style in the South, slave-type songs. And those two styles came together, and out of that was born the blues, or white blues, kind of like Jimmy Rogers kind of style. And jazz music today grew out of that same influence. All your polkas, of course, came over from the Central European countries. So almost any style of music that you like, you can almost trace it back to those roots. How the music was actually transported was by word of mouth. They didn't have TV, didn't have radio, didn't have any of those things. So as the settlers moved west, they took with them the music, and I think that probably accounts for so many different versions of the same song. We'll do you one. Let's do.
Turn these on.
It's on.
I turned it off first.
It's on. It's on. They're operating back there. Let's do. Can't think of the name of it. Oh, Can I Sleep in Your Barn Tonight, Mister? Okay. Now, as we do this song, I want you to listen to the melody and see if you remember a song that has that same melody. You're going to find a lot of different versions of the same song as you travel to different sections of the country. Well, the reason for that should be obvious. Because there was no mass communications and it was passed by word of mouth, it's the same thing where, the old game where I tell him something, he tells him, and so on and so forth around the room, and then you see what ends up at the end after everybody's heard it. It's entirely different. Well, that's what happened. Someone traveling through, going westward, heard this song probably. The melody kept turning over and over in their head, but they could not remember the words, so they just simply substituted another set of words that were a little more appropriate. It's called The Tramp, or Can I Sleep in Your Barn Tonight, Mister? Can I sleep in your barn tonight, mister? It's so cold laying out on the ground, and the cold north wind is a-blowing, and I have nowhere to lie down. You ask me how long I've been tramping and living this kind of a life. I will tell you my story, kind mister, though it's cutting my heart like a knife. It was 3 years ago last summer. I can never forget that sad day when a stranger came from the city. He was dressed up so fine and so gay. My wife said she'd like to be earning and to have something to add to our home. She She persuaded, and at last I consented that the stranger could come there and roam. One night as I came from working, I was whistling along in my joy. I was thinking of the kind-hearted welcome I would get from my wife and my boy. When the words that were written on the letter were enough to run any man wild, for they told me that Fair Ellen and the stranger had run away and taken my child. I went to a farmyard last summer, and they told me my baby had died. And there's where I fell down beside it, and there was the first time I cried. They took me out to the churchyard, and they showed me a newly made mound, and they told me that Fair Ellen lies sleeping beneath the cold, chilly ground. Let me tell you, I use no tobacco, neither carry no matches to light. I will do you no harm, kind mister. Can I sleep in your barn tonight? Anybody recognize the melody? Red River Valley. Okay? So you got that song, which is the oldest version that I can come across. You got Red River Valley's got the same melody. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, Willie Nelson rewrote the song with that same melody, and it was called Can I Sleep in Your Arms Tonight, Mister? And it was more of a country version. So you see that you can trace them back, you know, almost any song that you want to pick. You can trace it back, and it keeps popping up, you know, like century after century. You'll see a very, very similar song. So that should give you some general background. We could spend the rest of this week and a few more just, you know, talking about that, but I'd kind of like to move right into Appalachian. And I'm very, very fortunate along with me. I've got somebody that can give you firsthand knowledge on most of this stuff. So let's talk about the impact that the music's had on the life of people in Appalachia. Whenever you were a girl, what function did music play in your family's life?
Good part. We all played music, and so we didn't have radios and televisions and all that. So we would just gang up and play our own music. We had a great part of my life.
So you used it as entertainment, more or less.
Oh, yeah.
What kind of songs did you play? I mean, were they?
I couldn't make both of them. But now, like Old Dave Tucker and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
That's just as common as could be.
I know we do a lot of work songs, like John Henry.
Yeah.
You know, some of those kind of songs. It was fun. I know that you've told me how much fun you had with it, but music did more than that. I found that it kind of documents a lot of history.
Something would happen, and someone was smart enough to write a song about it. And so it just passed from one to another.
It was kind of like a singing newspaper then in those days. That's the way that they got the word out. That the big news story of the time. One comes to mind right away is John Hardy.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell them the story behind John Hardy?
Well, I don't know the story, do I?
Yeah, I hope so. You told me.
Yes,
There, you lied to me all these years.
I just heard that he was a bunch of people, a bunch of men gambling, and he always stayed broke, but still he stayed on the good side of the women. And so he came along where a bunch of miners were. And so he had done played all his money out. And some woman, she went and threw down a dollar bill and told him to deal John Hardy in the game. And she thought he would win, but the miner beat him. And so he killed him and was hung for it.
Where did that take place? Do you know?
Up here around Welch, I've always heard.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
Let's do the song.
All right.
John Hardy was a desperate little man, carried 2 guns every day. He shot down a man on that West Virginia line. Y'all seen John Hardy getting away, Lord, Lord. Y'all seen John Hardy getting away. John Hardy went to the gambling place, didn't have no interest in the game. But along came his woman and laid dollars down. Said, "Deal John Hardy in this game, Lord, Lord. Deal John Hardy in this game." John Hardy drew 2 4-card straight. The miner drew 2 pairs. Well, Johnny fell catching the miner won. He left him sitting dead in his chair, Lord, Lord. He left him sitting dead in his chair. John Hardy caught that eastbound train, so dark he could not see. Along came the sheriff and took him by the arm. Said, "John boy, come and go with me, Lord, Lord. John boy, come and go with me." John Hardy's daddy come for him, come forego his bail. Said there ain't no bail for a murdering man. They shoved old John Hardy back in jail, Lord, Lord. They shoved old John Hardy back in jail. Well, I've been to the east and I've been to the west. I've traveled the wide world round. I've been to the river and I've been baptized. And now I'm on my hanging ground, Lord, Lord. Now I'm on my hanging ground. I know that people worked hard back in those days. They worked all week long at some job or another, either farming or timbering, and there was a few coal mines, I guess, back then. But as a means of kind of letting it all out and having fun, usually on Friday night or Saturday night, they had a good square
Started
dance.
on Friday night, they ended up on Monday morning.
Very well takes in the whole weekend.
Oh, yeah. There's much fun as they would all have. They couldn't in one night
Yeah, you started out playing dance tunes, didn't you?
when I was 14.
When When you was 14?
Yeah,
They started letting you go to square dances then?
sure. Everybody did, but some was old and fogey. Listen, somebody will say something about you if you go to that dance, but that didn't cut no ice with Jenny.
Didn't make any difference. You went anyway, huh?
Sure. I didn't care what to say. Just so I'd get to go to the dance because there was a whole army of us, you know, my brothers and would go along too. But my sisters would.
Yeah.
They was on that fogey side, you know. Afraid somebody'd say something about them, you know, or afraid somebody'd get shot or cut up or something.
Yeah, you kind of had a time, didn't you? A couple of those square dances, talking
Yeah.
about getting cut up and all that.
But I can show you better than I can tell you. See right there, from there to there, right back here. But don't think she wasn't getting it too.
So not only did you have to play music, but you had to be pretty tough to survive.
Buddy,
in
you
that
had
position.
to. Listen, they didn't go around waiting for some boyfriend or something to take up for you. You had to take up yourself. Carry a knife in your pocketbook or a pistol. If you get in a place, get out. That's all you could do.
Yeah. I know that a lot of the songs back then all had very, very tragic endings. Seemed like the romances, or maybe the only ones they documented in song was the tragic romances, like Barbara Allen and Rose Conley. That seemed to be pretty much typical of the
Yeah.
songs that they sang.
And let's see, what was that the Beatles mimicked up? What, let's see.
Tom Dooley?
Yeah, see, they ruined that. Now, that was a folk song.
Yeah.
And the woman's name that was killed was Laura Foster. And that was supposed to have happened in Tennessee.
In Tennessee?
No, Kentucky. Because, you know, in that he said if it hadn't been for Grayson, I'd been in Tennessee.
I think Grayson was the sheriff's name, though, the constable,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
I know that.
I think it
But
was Tennessee.
He, huh?
I think it was Tennessee. I believe he's right the first time.
Was it?
Yeah, I believe.
Well, anyway, there was a long song of it, but they ruined it. There's a lot of other.
Yeah. The Carter family tried to dig out a lot of those old songs, and they preserved a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I can. While we're talking about the Carter family, I'll give you a little break here. It's called a auto harp, for those of you who don't know, and it's a much more modern instrument. It came into Appalachia shortly after the turn of the century, or around the turn of the century, when you started having mail order business like Sears and Roebuck, Montgomery Wards, those kind of things. Most of the older auto harps that I can trace back, people say, well, I ordered that out of the catalog, you know, Sears and Roebuck catalog. And just as the name implies, it's an automatic harp. It's got the chords down here all for you. You don't have to do much work at all to play the instrument. But when we're talking about the Carter family, I'll do you a couple of cards. It's hard to tune. It's hard to keep in tune, but when it's in tune, it's a nice instrument. Sing, so. And probably the first two instruments in Appalachia was fiddle and the banjo, wasn't it?
Fiddle and the banjo, and then the guitar come.
Guitar came in a little later.
Later.
Yeah, that's
A lot later.
okay. People wrote songs, you know, pretty much about their day-to-day life, like, let's see if I can think of one, Sarahwood Mountain.
Yes,
Let's play
yeah.
Sarahwood Mountain.
Let's play that. We would play like that, Roger, for half the night, dang still half. Many a night, hold corn next day.
I know a lot of the folklore in Appalachia is centered around storytelling. A lot of it about ghost stories, any kind of stories. I know you've not only told us about it, but we used to sit around a lot of times and tell ghost stories, and Mommy always had a lot of those. So, why don't you tell them one?
And now you know, those people are all educated. They're like you. They don't believe that stuff. And I believe every word of it. I just believe in all those old sayings and about dreams. Now listen, Roger don't believe in dreams. He'll say, Mommy, they're liable to put you in a straitjacket. You were talking that stuff. But I want to tell you what happened. And he knows that I'm telling the truth. It happened about 2 years ago, or 3, something like that. Anyway, I dreamed that Roger and me were somewhere playing music, just like we had done in 38 of the 50 states. And I thought he got lost from me, and I couldn't find him. And that his wife, Dabney, came up, and I thought me and her started to hunt for him. And we waded water. I thought he was that deep. And I discovered that there was blood on Dabney's dress. And I said, Dabney, what happened? And she said, oh, I passed where there's killing some hogs. And you know, I flew away. That worried me to death. Roger came down to put some roofing on my porch the next morning. And I said, Roger, be careful. Don't fall off that porch. Why? He said. So I told him my dream. He said, Mom, you know that dream is not going to make me fall off that porch. I said, Roger, I dreamed it. He said, what's that a sign of? I said, dream of blood is a sign of fire. And dream of fire is a sign of blood. Went on, he covered the porch. Him and his wife, they went back home that evening. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, ain't I telling the truth, that you called and said, I'm bringing the baby down. His father-in-law's house was burning up. That's the truth. Which it did. Dabney's, his wife's, Daddy's house burned up. And that water, you see, I'm sure they was wading water over in there. That was the end of my dream. Now, I sure dreamed that, and you know I told you about it.
I still worry about him locking
So Roger said, now, Mama, you were dreaming that dream made Leroy's house burn up, didn't it? I said, no, but it was a token. It was a sign that it was going to burn. Now, I believe then people's laughing at the knowing
What's some of
crazy.
your, what's some of the ghost stories that you've told for the truth?
Let's see.
How about the ones about the carrying the wood, the house you lived in where it sounded like the wood was slapping together?
Oh, now they had that here, didn't they?
I don't know.
Oh, about the house, the haunted house I lived in. I believe that's, you have
You got
that on
that?
tape here, don't you?
Oh, okay.
Did you say
So
that?
go ahead and tell it.
Well, and so when we got this house, we had to, when my husband got the job, well, we had to find somewhere to move. And they was making new houses. And this house, it was an old house, and it was empty. To move in it till they got the new house, it's done in the coal camp. So my husband said, Jennie, said, let's take that house to Porch of the Creek. I said, Jim, that's haunted and I'm not going to move it. He said, there was never such a thing, Dad. He said, did you ever hear of a haunted hurting somebody? I said, no, but they could cause you to hurt yourself. So he went on, got the house, and moved in it, which he claimed he never heard a thing. I lived in it about 8 months, and I said, if you don't get me away from here, I'm going to burn the house up. Because, I would caretaker. But night, it seemed like that it was like you carrying lumber with the ends hit. It seemed like it'd start right upstairs, go right across the room, and then it would stop. And anyway, there had been a woman had killed her husband there, and they claimed his name was Adam Taylor. Now, I was born and raised right up above that house, and I had always heard that story, that she killed him, cut his head off with the axe and kicked it out in the snow. And the house was haunted after that. And then I heard something one night that sounds like a baby crying. And so I had mine old and dead. I knowed it wasn't them. And there was a girl stayed with me. She wasn't afraid, and she was something like Roger believes that there's no such thing as that. She said, now, Jennie, I'm going to show you there's nothing up there. Well, here we go. She takes a flashlight, and I gets my gun. She said, get in front of me with that gun. Well, I did. We hunted around the house. Finally, all we could find that was anything like that, they was one of my neighbor's dogs. She had 3 little pups right in the corner of the yard where there was a big bunch of bushes and things. And them little pups, unless it was that, it was still Adam Taylor.
As far as you're concerned, it was Adam Taylor, though.
Oh, I was positive it was Adam Taylor.
Well, sometimes those ghost stories made their way into songs, as well as being good stories. I wish I could think of one offhand. Let's see. Here's one that kind of combines the ghost stories and romance. You probably recognize this song because it's been one of the more popular ones that they've revived and kept living. On a cold, dark night, someone was killed beneath the town hall light. There were few at the scene, but they all agreed that the slayer who ran looked a lot like me. Well, the judge said, son, what is your alibi? If you were somewhere else, then you won't have to die. But I spoke not a word you know, all the old songs and the folk songs, the whole folk music trends kind of died out now. It looked like during the 60s there that, you know, there was a revival of interest in folk music, especially traditional folk music. That's kind of died out now, and and the future for these kind of songs looks pretty bleak, with the exception of, you know, a lot of the colleges, like this one, for example, did take the time to make some tapes. Library of Congress, Smithsonian Institute. I'm grateful that they did, you know, go around and try to document as much of the music as they could, just in case at some time, some future generation, if there is a interest in it, at least they'll have some of the tapes and they can get a more accurate picture of what the music was all about and what the songs were all about. Yes. Mm-hmm. And Library of Congress both, yeah. We're going to have to run, so are there any questions? Anything you'd like to? Right. Just to give you a little, to round the program out, folk singers and songwriters, well, songwriters are still writing songs about things that affect their lives. I had the privilege to play for kind of a gathering to pay tribute to my first grade school teacher, who was also my second, third grade school teacher, a lady that I really love a lot, and her name's Lucy Whitman. And she gave me probably the greatest gift that anybody can give anybody. She taught me how to read. So I wrote a song about it. Matter of fact, that's the name of the song, Lucy Whitman Taught Me How to Read. Unfortunately, she didn't teach me anything about double negatives, and the song's just full of them. But I couldn't get any to meet her out, so I just put no in. So anyway. Well, I've been to the places that I wanted, done most of the things I care to do. People tell me that I'm lucky, and deep down I guess that it's true. But when I try to put it all together, trying to figure out why things are the way they seem, I trace my tracks back where I started, to a two-room wood frame school on Crooked Creek. We didn't have no audio-visual aids. Big Bird didn't teach me my ABCs. We didn't have no fancy computers, and our days were not spent watching the TV screen. But I could travel around the world with a weekly reader, or be anything that I wanted to be. I had a lady that cared about me. Lucy Whitman taught me how to read. I know this old world speeds by so quickly, we hardly have time to catch our breath. We live travel round the world with a weekly